I'm told by my American friends that when you move to a new town in America and you go to a party, absolutely the first question you're asked is, what church do you go to? You can't imagine that happening here. So there is a difference. There is a sense in which perhaps our efforts need to be concentrated in America rather than Britain. But actually on the world stage, it seems to me that our efforts need to be concentrated in the Middle East, in places where religion is more than just a sort of cultural battle, but actually is a physical, violent battle where people are actually being killed because of futile and footling distinctions between one religion and another.
I mean, do you have a view on what sort of action one can take? We've heard from some very brave campaigners in some of these countries, but when you look at the scale of it and you look at how entrenched religious establishments are in running countries, reasonably, what are the first steps towards that?
It's a very difficult thing. If you're talking about the Islamic world
well,
now.
Yes, particularly countries, I mean, like Saudi Arabia, which are allies of Britain. I mean, so much of the Middle East. Even if you didn't have the current crisis with ISIS, and I wonder what your view is, someone with a position of such authority in the world of humanism, about how some of the people in this room could think about trying to help bring about change.
I derive some comfort from talking to people in this room who come from this area, who tell me, and I hear it again and again, that the number of people who are dissenting from the predominant religion of that region is much greater than any of us on the whole realize. And that there is an underground movement, there is an undercurrent going on, and it could be one of those cases where there might be a critical mass where enough of such people come out that it ceases to be dangerous to do so.
Tell me about coming out, because this is a big part of your campaigning, but it doesn't feel like it's practical in so many of these countries yet, when you look at the level of authoritarian crackdown on any form of dissent.
That's right, and that's why I use the phrase critical mass, because there does come a point when enough people dissent from the ruling majority that the ruling majority no longer exercises the power that it at present does. If everybody believes that they're the only one who is an unbeliever, then they're afraid to mention it. But if there were some way in which they could secretly know that there are lots and lots of other people. I mean, I get this in a small way when I going back to the United States now. When I go on a lecture tour, I tend to concentrate wherever possible on the so-called Bible Belt. I tend to go to the Deep South, and what I find there is that, contrary to what many people expect, I get my most enthusiastic receptions in the Bible Belt. And just a second thought immediately tells you why. The sort of people who come to my lectures and the lectures of people like Christopher Hitchens are beleaguered. They feel threatened by the society in which they live. And so when somebody like me goes there, I will fill a hall with 2,000, 3,000 people. And the point is, for me, is not what I can tell them. The point for me is that they see each other in a great big hall, and they realize, I'm not alone after all. I thought I was. So I see myself as a lightning rod to bring people together and recognize their existence. And I'm hoping that, I mean, of course, in America, they're not actually physically endangering themselves by doing so. But there could be something similar in the Islamic world. Perhaps the internet could be a major force for informing and then empowering people, because it's relatively hard for an authoritarian government to police the internet. I mean, they try, and to some extent they succeed. But I think that it's going to get harder and harder to do that, and so it's possible that the internet may be one of our biggest weapons.
Okay.
I would like to abolish faith schools, in the sense of schools that are run by particular churches, particular denominations, which indoctrinate children in a particular religion, which are remarkably effective. I mean, the reason why there's so much bloodshed and violence in the Middle East is precisely because young children have been indoctrinated from the cradle upwards. They've been sent to madrasas, they've been taught nonsense, and they've been told this is Holy Writ. They've been told that you've got to believe this, And people really do believe it. As Sam Harris said, the thing to understand when you're talking about people like suicide bombers, these people really believe what they say they believe. And the reason they really believe what they say they believe is that they were told it as children at a vulnerable age. And the evidence that they do really believe it seems to me undeniable. The other big thing I have about children, and I've become almost a bore about this, is labeling of children. It's another aspect of the same thing, but indoctrination goes with the tying a label around a child and saying, this is a Catholic child, this is a Protestant child, this is a Muslim child. And what really pisses me off about this is that it isn't only done by the religious. We all do it. It's part of our culture to label a child. We see in the newspapers in Northern Ireland Catholic children on their way to school being stoned by Protestants, or Protestant children on their way to school being stoned. The newspapers, which are not run by religion, it's not religious propaganda, it's simply accepted that there is such a thing as a Catholic child. No, there isn't. There's a child of Catholic parents. Don't ever talk about a Catholic child, a Protestant child, a Muslim child.